Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome leader of Brexit and host of GBTV News Channel, Nigel Farage.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. What a lovely welcome. Good afternoon, CPAC. Do you know, when I first came and spoke here, it was in 2012, and I was the only non-American foreigner on the stage. Not that that worried me, because I think that our two countries have a heck of a lot in common. But I come back to CPAC today in 2023, and you go through the coffee rooms and the bars, and you meet people who are here from Japan, where CPAC has events, from Australia, where CPAC has events, from Hungary, where CPAC had its first inaugural events. There are people here from France, from Spain, from Italy, from all over the world, and this conference, this annual conference of CPAC, has now become, for the entire conservative movement across the free world, this is now the epicenter, and it is an amazing tribute to Matt and Mercedes Schlapp to have achieved that. It really is. It really, really is. Now, not for the first time in my life, I find myself today in a bit of trouble with the UK authorities. You see, a story has broken overnight. A lot of WhatsApp messages have been leaked between the Prime Minister, senior officials who were overseeing lockdowns, mask mandates, vaccine mandates, the people that took charge of our country, and the story that's broken overnight, and here it is. I went to Tulsa in the summer of 2020 for Donald Trump's first rally on the campaign tour. And I did that because I'm a friend of his. I did that because I believe in him. I did that because I think he's just about the bravest man I've ever met in my entire life. Trouble was, coming back from Tulsa under bizarre draconian lockdown rules, it meant I had to quarantine at home for a fortnight. Now, what was a fortnight? What was 14 days? Did it include the day that I'd landed back in the United Kingdom? And I was presented with a dilemma, because for the first time in months, the pubs, our great British pubs, which had been closed for all that time, the pubs were opening. Well, I did the only thing I thought I could possibly do. I was there at 12 o'clock in the morning, knocking on the door, saying, let me in. I want to get back in the pub, not just because I enjoy a beer, but because every pub is a parliament. It's where we have free speech and debates, question each other, make up our minds. Anyway, they let me in. I had a drink. There were one or two photographs, things out on social media. But it turned out that I hadn't actually been in the country for a full 14 days. Even though I'd COVID tested the day before, no, I'd been there, I think for 13 nights and 12 hours. And it led to the leader of our Liberal Party writing to the police. But worse than that, what we've learned overnight is that Matt Hancock, who was our health secretary, absolute pipsqueak of a loser, but never mind. I mean, sort of chap, if you were employing him, you wouldn't even let him wash the cars, in my view, but never mind. And so Hancock's group are talking to each other, and they're saying, because of what I've done, that I'm a pub hooligan. Now, you know, you can call me what you like. I'm not a hooligan. But they actually, in these messages, say they want to get hold of our Home Affairs Department because they want, and I quote, to lock him up. To lock him up. And what this tells me today is a couple of things that matter. And it's this. In the name of coronavirus, governments, state governors in America took away from us liberties and freedoms that had been built, defended, fought for over generations and over centuries. We gave unlimited power to people to lock us inside our houses, to tell us we couldn't visit our elderly relatives, to tell us in our case we couldn't even play golf or go fishing. No, we had to do what big government told us to do. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what tyranny looks like. And you know what? On the back of this, I've admitted today that I also broke lots of other lockdown rules. Yeah. I went to meet my elderly parents, often outside in a safe environment. I met friends, sat in the garden, had a barbecue, had a drink. I went fishing. You see, the point is this. When laws become enemies of men, men become enemies of laws. And I will not ever, if any government ever tries to take away my liberties again like that, I'm going to be a rebel from day one, and I suggest you join me in that. Now, in some ways, these are very difficult times for Conservatives in the English-speaking world. You guys have to be frank. It's all well and good saying we won the House. The midterms were a big disappointment. We need to look in the mirror and acknowledge that. In other parts of the English world, the Conservative movement's in real trouble. Go north to Canada.
Castro!
Oh, don't you like Justin Trudeau? And the trouble is, he's not a loser, he's in power, and that's the problem I'm talking about. What he did to the Canadian truckers was beyond comprehension. People who had acted and lived their lives within the law found themselves outside of the law, and in the end, their bank accounts were closed. We can go to Australia, which has now become one of the wokest places on earth. We can go to New Zealand. But hey, there's some good news there. Jacinda Ardern has gone. That at least is a bit of good news. And we can go to the UK, where the Conservatives were elected with a massive majority, much of which I literally gave them on a plate. Elected as Conservatives, they've governed as Liberals. We're tied to net zero and a whole bunch of lunacy. And yet, in Europe, Conservatives are making real progress. They're making real progress in France. They're making real progress in Spain. They're making huge progress in Italy. And I'm not ashamed to say that Giorgia Meloni is my new pin-up. No question about it. So why is conservatism doing well in the non-English speaking world and as badly as it is in our world? I'll tell you why. It's what comes from the West Coast. It's what comes from big tech. It is the dominance of those companies in the English-speaking world that has spread this poison through our systems. I'm hoping and praying that Elon Musk taking over Twitter starts to redress some of this balance. I really am. And we'll see. But these are depressing times for Conservatives. Just this week, in the British Isles, we had a case of a drag queen invited to speak to a group of 11-year-old children. Boys and girls of 11 being told there are 73 different genders. Girls being told they can take a part of skin, a graft of their skin from their arms to make a male implement. That's about the most diplomatic way I think I can possibly put that. And a kid in the class says, my mummy and daddy tell me there are two genders. There are men and women. And a kid of 11 is kicked out of the class. And you know, if you've got kids or grandkids going through the university system, they're not even being taught critical thinking. They're not even being taught objectivity. So it would be easy for this audience, in the wake of a disappointing midterm, in the wake of the catastrophe that is the southern border in this country, in light of rising crime, horrendous rising crime in American cities, in the light of all of these things, it could be easy in a quiet, reflective moment to think we're losing. And maybe we've lost. Maybe we've lost everything. The Judeo-Christian principles upon which our civilization were founded are under attack. The belief that the family is a good thing and a good unit in which to bring up children is viciously under attack. We can easily get down and depressed. I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't get down and depressed. Because whoever dominates mainstream media, whatever you read in the New York Times, if that's what you choose to do in your free time, or whatever you see on CNN or elsewhere, the truth is there is still in America and across the free world, there is still a mainstream majority for common sense, for decency. It's still there. You ask Americans about voter ID. 75% of Americans support voter ID. 50% of Democrats support voter ID. You ask most people about our roots, our family, they agree. Here's why we can win. In Scotland, which if you haven't been, is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's part of the United Kingdom. Of course, Donald Trump's mum came from Scotland. He's half Scottish. But in Scotland for the last few years, they've been under the rule of a First Minister called Nicola Sturgeon. She wanted Scotland to become the most progressive country in the world and started passing crazy legislation. And then a few months ago, she passed a new Gender Recognition Act, where kids of 16, without reference to a doctor, without any parental consent at all, kids of 16 could change their gender, legally change their gender. 80% of Scots didn't want it, but the Scottish Parliament pushed it through. And then a legal case occurred. A man, a really bad guy, who'd committed 2 rapes, turns up in court for his trial wearing a wig, telling the judge and the jury that he's now a woman, gets a long prison sentence and gets sent to a woman's prison, which clearly endangers women. And suddenly that pendulum that's gone that way for all those years has swung back. Nicola Sturgeon has now resigned as First Minister of Scotland. The legislation has been scrapped, it's gone, and the silent majority have had their voices heard. If they can turn it around in Scotland against a woman with that huge level of power, can you turn it round in this great country of the United States of America? Can you turn this round? I can't hear you. Can you turn this round? Will you turn this round? Good. Well, save America and you'll save the free world. And I love you and thank you very much indeed. Thank you.